Good morning, good afternoon to everybody, wherever you're at. My name is Alejandro, Alex Ramirez. I'm currently, as of 2 weeks ago, the new director of digital educational services in the Anaheim Elementary School District. Prior to that, I was a school site principal for the past 16 years. And I've had experience with ST math in one capacity or another for the past maybe 20 years. So it's been quite a journey with Gigi, and along the way, and seeing all the successes and everything that we've done at school sites to try to make that meaningful for our students.
Thank you, Alejandro. And again, my name is Annie. I'm an education success manager with Mind, and I'm located in Ventura, California, and I support Alejandro's district in Anaheim. It's such a joy to work with everyone in Anaheim. And so I've had the pleasure of working with Alejandro at Price Elementary, and now I'm excited to work with him at the district office. And so we're just going to share a little bit about the best tips we can give as you're beginning the school year. And then it'll be a conversation where we have Alejandro chime in. Obviously, he has a ton of experience in the past 20 years with ST Math, and he's seen what works, he's tried lots of different things with ST Math. And so we're going to have him share his insights and experiences with you. And our goal is to finish pretty early. I mean, we're going to probably give about 10 minutes at the end so that you can ask questions and ask Alejandro about his experience and anything particular that's coming up as you're preparing for this new school year. So let's take a look at the agenda. We're going to be talking about how to set goals and expectations, the nitty-gritty technology procedures, what you kind of need to think about as you're preparing to roll ST Math out with your students and educators. Discussing how to set a schedule and what that looks like. Every school uses ST Math in a different way, and so you'll hear some ideas. And I'd love for all of you to share your own ideas when we get to that opportunity. And then introducing ST Math. What does it look like when you're actually sharing it with students for the first time? And we want to touch a little bit about what Tawana touched upon in the opener, which is modeling productive struggle, and how we can help our educators model for students that, that math is human, and that learning is a journey and a process, and it's not always about the correct answer. And then finally, we were going to summarize with creating and, most importantly, maintaining a GG culture. GG culture is one that is rooted in productive struggle and that effort that we give, that thinking, discussing our thoughts, and maintaining GG culture is something that Alejandro has done very well at Price Elementary. I've seen it in action, so he's going to share the wonderful things that he's done so far. So in the beginning, whether you are a district administrator or you are at a school site, you really want to start with a plan. And we highly recommend setting a meeting with your education success manager. So that's someone who is in my role with Mind. And you're going to actually group a team together. You can get some strong champion teachers who we like to call ST Math champions. You can get administrators together, math specialists, curriculum coaches, particular roles that you want involved in the implementation. And this is something where you really want a team member from the Mind organization in order to guide you as you're beginning. During this meeting, you're going to set any professional learning or professional development that you want to do with your educators. Typically, we like to do that right at the beginning of school year if you're starting out as a new ST Math school this year. You want to look at usage goals. What is it going to look like at your school? How will implementation work? How often will students be using ST Math? Will it be in the classroom? Will it be at home? Things like that. And then will it be integrated with the curriculum? And that's something that you can move forward toward throughout the year. And Alejandro will touch on that as well. But setting this goal, having the goal of where you want to go. What I like to do when I meet with districts and schools is, where do we want to be 100 days from now? Where do we want to be 300 days from now? And what kind of can we do to make sure that we're meeting those goals in that process? Alejandro, what did goal setting look like at Price Elementary and your former school prior to that?
When we first started goal setting, I was fortunate enough to be part of, when we implemented STMath the first time, we were part of a grant structure that allowed us to start with two 45-minute sessions, which facilitated and made it easier for us to establish goals. When that grant was over, we then had to accommodate in terms of how we were going to monitor and how we were going to establish goals within a different time expectation of time on task or sessions that students would be expected to be on STMath. So we would we still adopted the goal of having 10 to 12 percent complete by the end of the month or per month as a goal for each of our students or each of our classes. And I would in turn work with grade levels to identify specific goals and relative to specific needs of different students. And then I would monitor those goals throughout the year during PLCs or during grade level meetings.
Thank you. And Alejandro kind of took it upon himself as the principal. You can also have a STMath champion monitoring the usage among your educators and among your students. So you can assign certain people on your team to do that and really make sure that we're taking those steps toward those goals. And as questions come up, please put them in the chat. We're happy to touch upon questions now. We'll also have time for questions at the end. Now, technology procedures. So things are evolving. Post-COVID, we have almost one-to-one in most schools in California. I'm not as familiar at other states, but COVID has shifted the way STMath is implemented and used. So Alejandro, I'd like you to touch on what it looked like at your school pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. What does the implementation look like in terms of routine? How are students accessing STMath? How are teachers using it as discussion pieces? And then maybe touch on home use as well.
Prior to the pandemic, let me take a step back. Prior to having one-to-one devices, our students would either have a lab that they would go to, or they would have classrooms would share a cow or a mobile lab that teachers would share, so that students had a fixed schedule in terms of the session or how much time they were going to do on a weekly basis. We were doing two 45-minute sessions, as I mentioned. We introduced coding a few years ago here in our district, so we cut back on the STMath time to one 45-minute session. And what the pandemic forced us to do, obviously, is for students to have one-to-one access and home access. So we continued with the expectation when we came back that students needed to do 45 minutes of one 45-minute session at school, and then we recommended that teachers allow their students 45-minute of home use, so that can be divided as students see fit, whether they were doing 10 minutes a day or something along those lines. Accessing STMath here in our district, we access STMath through our Clever system, but you can also do that through a password system, however your district wants to set that up. Projection in the classroom is noted there because at our school site, it was very important for our students to have access to what Gigi looks like, what STMath looks like from a curriculum standpoint. So our students were, our teachers would project that in the classroom on teacher mode, and or through Gigi talks, STMath talks, and they would have students interact with the games and introduce language to the games and academic vocabulary, which became very, very vital and key to the success of the overall program.
Thank you. I've seen done so many different ways, but even when we're just starting out, sometimes teachers will put a puzzle up as students come in from recess, and the students just start talking about the puzzle. And sometimes the teacher won't even go through the answer. They'll just have students talk about the puzzle, and it kind of gets everyone to talk about some math as they're opening up their math lesson. And maybe they'll finish the puzzle the next day. So these puzzles, even when you're starting out with ST Math, you can use them in creative ways. It doesn't always have to be the student experience on the Chromebook or on the laptop or Padlet. Let's take a look at setting a schedule. Alejandro, you touched on this, and this is probably the most challenging piece of implementing ST Math because it is a supplementary program, and we have a lot of things going on in our schools. And I know as a former teacher that I was always trying to pack in as much as I could. So Alejandro, you talked about having two different 45-minute sessions. And the reason he mentioned two 45-minute sessions is because for our students who are in grades 2nd and higher, we highly recommend 90 minutes per week. So these recommendations that you see on the screen are per week. Now, this can be hard for many schools because you're trying to meet a lot of different demands of time. And this may be something where your school's not ready for 90 minutes per week. And we want to acknowledge that that's okay. Any time in ST Math is time well spent and time learning. And so when you're in that goal setting process at the beginning of the year, maybe the goal is instead of 90 minutes per week, maybe the whole goal is 30 minutes per week to start out. And then we're going to add as we go. Many schools do not ask students to do ST Math at home due to internet access, equity issues, technology issues. So keep in mind that home use may be not an option with your group of students. So this is something where, Alejandro, I'd love you to touch on this. And then we have so many people here, and I know many of you have used ST Math or have heard about it, and maybe you have an idea of how it could fit into your schedule. So go ahead, Alejandro.
Well, first of all, I want to apologize because I keep saying percent complete, and I know right here in the slide it mentions puzzles. Puzzles became a form of monitoring the progress of students for about 4 years ago, if I'm correct. But prior to, because I've been working with ST Math for so long, we used to monitor it through percent complete. So it became a little bit difficult to make that transition for myself to try to put my head around the whole puzzle thing. But yes, yeah, Annie's correct in saying that 2nd through 6th grade, we are a K-6 school. So 2nd through 6th grade is the recommended time of 45-minute sessions. And like I mentioned, we would do one at school, and we were able to recommend that students do the other 45 minutes at home in one way or another. And then the two 30-minute sessions for K and 1, and the 1 30-minute session for TK. If you don't have access to one-to-one devices, the recommend, and students are still going to a lab or sharing computers, then a fixed schedule is what works best. We do have one-to-one devices, so we did allow our teachers to establish their GG time throughout the week.
Alejandro, did you find that most teachers would do stations, or would they have their entire class on ST Math at the same time? What did it look like in the classrooms at your school?
All students would be doing ST Math at the same time, while the teacher would monitor and ask leading questions, prompt students to use different types of support systems that included manipulatives or even a blank sheet of scratch paper, so the students who were stuck or struggling were able to continue their problem solving using other tools as you would expect them or want them to do in other mathematical settings as well. So that was what was easiest for us and for implementation purposes, because when you're working with a fixed time or all the other things that you need to get in as a teacher, it definitely allows teachers to even pull small groups to practice on certain key ideas if necessary, in terms of groups of students that are struggling on a specific puzzle or concept that you can elaborate or even help with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you find that when teachers were doing this, did they have a routine of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or did they have a routine of every day they were on for 15 minutes? What did it look like among your educators?
Most teachers would do it twice a week, so that there was some consistency in terms of when they met with students. I know that it helped with the how they correlated with the curriculum at times, or how they integrated with the curriculum at times. So it did, that consistency of a schedule did allow for more collaboration between the grade level team as well.
Yeah, great. Other ideas? Can we have some participants share what does the ST Math schedule look like for you? Or maybe you are brand new to ST Math. Do you imagine what it could look like in your classroom or school? You're welcome to come off mute, yes. So we have two 30-minute sessions per week, and early finishers were able to use ST Math. And we can have a routine of about 15 minutes per day. And this is something I get a lot of questions about is, could it be 5 or 10 minutes? And we highly recommend 15 minutes being the minimum of the session. And that's simply because it takes a while for students to log in, especially if they're doing their visual picture password rather than a Clever or ClassLink type of single sign-on login. And then they need time to dig into the puzzle and complete a level. So we highly recommend that it's a minimum of 15 minutes per session, which of course you can go up to 30 minutes if you'd like to. Middle school teachers. Any middle school teachers here today? You can use this on shorter days when you have PD days, things like that. A daily math station. Wonderful. Yes, WIN. If you haven't heard of the WIN time, it's what I need. This could be a great middle school intervention piece for what I need. Definitely. We have many schools that use ST Math as an intervention at the middle school level and at the elementary level. Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Introducing ST Math. So this is something that we hope you would have fun with. Now, many of you are new to ST Math completely, but this year we have something that's very new, even new to our 20-year veteran, Alejandro. It's called our ST Math Launch Day. So this is a fun day. You can make it an entire week if you have a giant district that you work with. And we have a toolkit for you. So we have fun activities that you can do with students. And ideally, we recommend having the entire district or the entire school do ST Math activities on that day. You would incorporate ST Math puzzles, of course, and have students work in their journey. But the ST Math Launch Day can also be coloring activities for younger grade level students, puzzles, hands-on math activities, things like that. So I'm going to actually put a link in the chat because this will give you more information on the ST Math Launch Day. And you can always find things like this in our help site. So if you have an ST Math account and you go to help, you can type in Launch Day and you can find this toolkit. There are videos there that you can play for students. There's a couple different ways you can introduce ST Math to students if they've never been exposed to GG. And ST Math Day, the launch day is a lot of fun. So I know that I'm working with a couple schools and we're actually bringing our GG costume And then also we have a giant Gigi inflatables, and we bring those to the schools so students can take pictures with the schools, and the costume Gigi can visit different classrooms. So you can work with your education success manager, someone like me, to have a Gigi visit. And these are all free things that we can do for you as long as we plan ahead. Mrs. Boucher says, how do we get little Gigi stickers? Yes, we have a Gigi store. So you can actually order stickers and all sorts of swag through this store. Jamie, can you help me get a link to the Gigi store in there? Okay. Thank you. Introducing, Alejandro touched on having classroom tools available. Many times we think that when students are doing ST Math, they're going to be on the device one-on-one and they're going through the journey. And it's a disservice to our students if we're not providing manipulatives, pencil and paper, whiteboards, 10-frame counters, things like that. So definitely make sure that manipulatives are out and available on tables and desks so students have tools to help them process through the puzzles. And Jamie, it looks like my link, I wonder if I copied it wrong. Can you also get the Launch Day toolkit?
Yep, I'll work on that.
Thank you. My apologies. Must have cut it off somehow. And another last important thing is, if you're going to ask students to do ST Math at home, we need to provide our parents with facilitation resources at home. How can parents support these students as they're going through the puzzles? We really don't want students to be stuck on these puzzles forever and feel so defeated. We want our parents to be able to walk these students through the puzzles and ask questions. So whether it's introducing ST Math at a back to school night or having an ST Math family night, we can do these over Zoom. We can do them in person, and the families can do puzzles and actual ST Math. Like we have board games and all sorts of fun games that you can do with families. But please make sure that in educating your families on ST Math is an important piece of your implementation. Alejandro, can you touch on what did it look like at price?
Well, touching on that parent education piece is we focused a lot on obviously introducing what Gigi looks like and what in the classroom and what it could look like at home when we started allowing that the devices to go home. But the emphasis, once a year we would do kind of like an information meeting. Our curriculum coach would come out and hold a parent meeting for our parents, and while emphasizing not necessarily the game, introducing what it looks like and what our students are doing, but emphasizing the whole problem-solving idea in terms of you could take anything from a non-linguistic approach and take it in the collaborative problem-solving approach, and use a collaborative problem-solving approach to solve something. That was what we emphasized with our parents on a yearly basis when we introduced them to ST Math, and we always had a good turnout. I was fortunate enough to have one family night that we offered at one of my schools, where again the no computers were used, and everything we used was revolved around a problem-solving activity. Many of our new science activities can be used to emphasize that problem-solving approach. All with the idea that that's what the optimum intent of ST Math is when students are playing that game.
Yes, and when I think about families as a high school math teacher, at back to school night, I had families that the first thing they would say is, well, my son's not going to be good at math because I'm not good at math, and this is pre-calculus and I can't help. And and it was such a challenge as a teacher to hear that every year, because it made me so sad. But it also reminded me of how parents can be facilitators without knowing the math. And we can provide parents with tools and questions to ask without having them be experts in the content. So let's talk a little bit about the problem-solving process. So this has been touched upon. If you haven't had professional development on ST Math, then you haven't seen this, but if you do professional development, this will come up in every session. And this is that making math human. We all think in a certain way because our brains are wired in a certain way to come up with answers and predictions. And this is the neuroscience around ST Math and why it was created. So when we look at a problem, we're always noticing and wondering about the situation. It's our nature. And then we're deciding, what do we think is going to happen? We're making that prediction. Once we make that prediction, we're testing and observing, and then we're looking at the outcome. Does it match what we predicted, or are we learning something new and building new schema? And so this problem-solving process is where it's not about the answer. It's about developing our thinking and building our schema. And we want our parents to understand this is the why behind problem solving and thinking. This is why all of these schools are choosing ST Math, is because it's not about just being able to do the problem. It's about the thinking and being able to think creatively and abstractly and conceptually. And we also want our teachers to be able to model this thinking for students. So we want our teachers to model what it looks like to struggle, what it looks like to not know what the answer might be, and to guess multiple times in the wrong way and learn from it and see that informative feedback. So Alejandro, do you want to share, what did it look like for teachers, and were you able to educate parents on this problem solving process at all? What did that look like?
As we introduced parents to ST Math and gave them idea of what students were doing in the classroom, yes, we were able to introduce this problem-solving process with them, and integrating it with other parts of the curriculum, which I mentioned included science. Always with the emphasis that there were many approaches to one outcome, or maybe even multiple outcomes that were possible. It was a fun process for families to work together when we provided those opportunities in a family night environment on completing a task or figuring out or problem solving some problem or a real world problem as well. In the classroom, math chats became a very important component. ST Math chats became a very important component of how we emphasize this problem-solving approach in a collaborative way, because we were able to take a Giga game and allow students to ask those questions that maybe they wouldn't usually ask when they're working on the games individually in a session. So it did allow for teachers to set up what kind of questions should be asked, how questions could be asked, what kind of approaches can be planned, and what kind of tools are necessary, while touching on all the SMPs out there as another way to approach ST Math.
Thanks, Alejandro. Jamie, you know what? I'm thinking about those bookmarks of the problem-solving process, and how having teachers have them right in front of them. And then also there's a student version, even for the youngest learner, where students can actually have the bookmark. And when they get stuck in a puzzle, they can follow the problem-solving process and, walk themselves through the solving process to help themselves. So Jamie, if you can put that in the chat as well, that's a great resource. We have a district I work with where they're actually printing those bookmarks for the entire district. And this district has 30 schools, but they're going to do one for each teacher to make sure that each teacher has this, because it's a conversation that, even though the puzzles might be different, the teachers can still use that path of facilitation for each puzzle, whether it's one-on-one with the student or with an entire class or a small group. But I love the way, Alejandro, you touch on that discourse. That conversation around the puzzles is just as important. Thank you. And then the fun part, we want to create a Giga culture. This is not our nonprofit is not about just a math game. It's about a culture, it's about a mindset, and it's about making math human and making us all enjoy math and the process of learning and the process of making, predictions, but adjusting our thinking as we go. So Alejandro, your school did a fantastic job at not only creating the Giga culture, but maintaining it. So how did you do that?
Like as I mentioned earlier, we established a goal. I was very involved in monitoring the success of our students, or the success of our classrooms, I should say. We did recommend that teachers have a corner or an area in the classroom where they could celebrate or post goals as well, as they made progress in Giga. I would take the time to print out that report on a monthly basis as I was monitoring classroom use, and sending out an email to the class celebrating the accomplishment, or how close they came to meeting their goal, or by how much did they surpass their goal. Students of all grade levels, TK through sixth grade, would get so excited to hear my message, and if they met their goal, they would definitely let me know that while I was out at recess for lunch, that they had met their goal and they were ready to meet the next month's goal. If they didn't meet their goal, it was a conversation that they had with their teachers in terms of how they were going to meet it the next time. Always keeping this obviously on a positive note, because Giga was not something we wanted to become punitive when progress was not being made. Especially with our upper grade students, which are a little bit harder to motivate to take advantage of this time and make progress. But that for sure translated over to the individual success of our students, and them finding the time to celebrate. And as we also recognize the students that reached the 100% mark, teachers themselves, and we would do that at a school-wide assembly and recognize those students who reached 100% of or completed a certain number of puzzles. Teachers took it upon themselves to celebrate incremental growth, however they'd like, whether it was by every 100 puzzles or every 1,000 puzzles, or maybe every 10% of completion rate. I mentioned the ST Math Family Night there. So again, that connection with families, so that they know what our students are doing or what their children are doing. We've all heard that that our parents learned how to do math a different way. So it definitely helps them realize that while it was a different way of learning, the result or the approach can be the same in many different ways. So we were fortunate enough to have Giga visit our classroom, because here in Anaheim, we had the highest completion rate of any other school. So it was definitely something to celebrate. I think I mentioned to Annie yesterday that sixth grade has always been a difficult grade to motivate in terms of completion. And with all the work that our teachers brought into promoting this, I probably had the highest sixth grade completion rate that I've ever had in my whole career. So that was very exciting.
That's fantastic. I'd love for everyone in here, if you have an idea for celebrating students, student trackers. I know you've done wonderful recognition pieces in your classroom throughout the years. The key piece, as people are typing, is having a leader who's monitoring and reinforcing that positive recognition. And Alejandro, you took that upon yourself as principal, and you were the leader, and you were constantly positively reinforcing teachers and students. And I know when we spoke earlier that you saw that even teachers who weren't using ST Math as often, when the students were recognized, the students would ask to use ST Math. So the students almost requested it from the teacher. So there are ways where you can really encourage usage in a positive way without asking people to, suddenly up their minutes. Any other ideas? Mrs. Boucher said that they had an instructional coach that would email with updates. Yes, anything that you can do in the SU Math dashboard, which if you've been using it in the past, you are able to do progress monitoring of your students or your school if you're an administrator. However, this year, you're going to actually be able to pull data and you're going to be able to select the date range. So up until now, it's been where you can only select the full week that you're looking for. But let's say that you want, I had a district that did a March Mathness challenge, and they had all their schools compete in the most puzzles. And so we would be able to pull the number of puzzles per school by the month. And that's something that you'll be able to do from the dashboard. But if you ever need help, you can always contact your education success manager. Okay, so that is the end of our little topics that we had on the agenda. Well, we are out of time, but please reach out to any of us. You can always support or contact our support team if you need any other help. Alejandro, I just want to thank you for all that you've done today to help everybody and provide your insight. Thank you for being here today, and good luck this next school year. We're all cheering you on, and have a great day, everybody.